Welcome back, everyone, to What Is This Weapon? I'm Jonathan, and this, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, is the LeMat revolver. Quite an iconic firearm, especially for the realm of the percussion revolver, which is what it is, and it shows up in pop culture, not infrequently. And actually, the inspiration for picking this right now, we would have got around to it at some point, is the recent movie Furiosa, the spin-off of Mad Max, which I very much enjoyed as a fan of those movies. And in the promotional material, actually, or the trailer probably first, I spotted that Dementus, Chris Hemsworth's character, is wielding a LeMat revolver. With a bit of squinting, as I often do, at the footage and a nice big image, which we can hopefully show you as well, I was able to work out that sadly, it's not a real LeMat revolver like this one. It is not even a shooting reproduction. Pieta do one, for example, in Italy. It was a rather cheap die-cast Denix replica made in Spain. Disappointing. On two levels. Firstly, it doesn't look as cool as the real gun, especially not in glorious HD, IMAX, whatever it was you see the movie in. But also, it's non-functional. It's not a firing, it doesn't even fire caps. So, you know, therefore, that any firing of the gun in the movie is CGI, and I'm not a huge fan of that. But it really didn't detract from the film. It still has a lot of presence. It still sort of fits his character. He's got a special custom peg on the side here for hanging it from his belt instead of putting it in a holster, which was an interesting touch. I don't remember any significant use of this, which is the shotgun barrel, which makes this as iconic as it is, I think, both in terms of the silhouette of the gun and this idea that you have your 9 shots. This is a 9-shot cylinder of 42 caliber, approximately, revolver bullets, obviously. And then under the barrel, you have an 18 bore, 18 gauge. They do vary over the production of these guns. Shotgun barrel, so smooth bore underneath the rifled pistol barrel. So before I move on from the nerdy movie stuff, the giveaways on that replica, I guess the finish, although you could have had a bare metal finish reproduction LeMat, but it just kind of looked a bit off there. I noticed as well that the hammer, which we'll come to in a moment, is wrong, missing this critical component on the top, which I'll explain in a moment. And I also noticed the real clincher here was that the serial number was 2054. The image was that good I could zoom in. Well, guess which LeMat revolver Denix copied? This one. Because it has the same serial number, 2054, on the side, which is really quite fun. It's like a 6 degrees of separation, but it's a connection to the movie. Otherwise, it's a pretty good replica, to be fair. You wouldn't know the difference. It doesn't detract, as I say, from the film. So, what about the real gun? Well, I've already mentioned the caliber, the 2 different barrels. How does that work? Well, being a percussion revolver, you have these nipples on the back. They're also wrong in the movie, but anyway. We have these nipples on the back that take caps, so a very laborious process. We have the rammer on the side here. That's one of the defining characteristics of the first pattern LeMat, by the way, which we don't have, annoyingly. Different rammer and spurred trigger guard. So have a look those up if you'd like, but we don't have one to show you. So being percussion, it has it's built-in ramrod here with a lever plunger setup. So you would insert on this side, or pour in powder and press in a bullet, or press in a cartridge with a thin paper skin of powder and bullet. Press it in, rotate this around until it's under the rammer, and then ram it down into place. So it's a nice tight fit. You don't get a chain fire where the fire flashes across the chambers and sets the whole lot off. You don't want that with a 9-shot revolver that also has a shotgun barrel underneath. That would be a bad time. Modern users put grease over the front of the chambers to prevent that as well. And you do that 9 times, and then you put a cap on the back. That's what this cutout here is for. You put a cap on each nipple till they're all capped, of course. Now you might be thinking, how do you load the shotgun barrel? I mean, you could sort of try and jam it down there with a little finger. Not ideal. But what Lammat's come up with here is you pop the rammer out. Well, you have the rammer out already, presumably, because you're loading your cylinder. There's then, just about see, there's a split in the end of the main rammer, and we have a little baby ramrod semi-concealed in here, and that is used that way around to ram down your charge and shot for the shotgun. That's another quite neat design feature there. Where's the nipple for the shotgun barrel? Well, it's actually under the hammer there on the frame, and the flame is communicated through the center of the cylinder axis, into the back of the barrel and fires that barrel. How do you switch between the two? Well, this was one of the bits that was missing from the Furiosa gun. This little nub in here, press that down and the nose of your hammer drops down. So when it's in the up position, it's firing the top, whichever nipple is at the top, which fires the pistol barrel. And when it's put it on half cock there, when it's tilted down, it's then in contact, or will be in contact when you pull the trigger with the bottom nipple. So quite clever. A feature of the patents as well, perhaps unsurprisingly. So this example is in great condition. We've got an original sort of mirror polished blue finish here, mostly intact, worn away in places, notably where the hand, the thumb and the finger wrap around the frame. It's worn there, but it's pretty good otherwise, to say the least. You have this little stylistic flourish here. Now that's on the head of the axis pin for the hammer. So it's almost like we've had to put a thing there that spoils the lines of the gun. Let's decorate the head of it. And even the little nut on the other side of it has decoration around that edge as well. But there's no other decoration on the gun, which is interesting. You do get decorated examples. This isn't one of them. We have several, by the way. This is by far the best condition. They're all the same. So I'm only showing you this one of the percussion pistol. There is, however, a decorative maker's name on the top barrel flat. It's maybe not decoration per se, but there is a sort of a cartouche line around it with these terminals either side. That's decorative. And then the script is just a choice. Hopefully you can read that. It says Système Lammat, BTE, brevet, patent, SGDG, Paris. So, very French. Now, Lammat was French extraction, of course, first generation American, I think, and set up home in the States. But the guns were made in Europe, so many made in Paris. It is festooned with British proof marks. So we have, you'll not see the pistol barrel marks necessarily, but there are proof and view marks, London gunmakers proof, on both the pistol barrel in here where you may not be able to see them, and on the shotgun barrel where they are more visible, and then all the way around the cylinder as well. Proof view, proof view, proof view. So the V, crown V for view, that's the initial inspection. Yes, this looks like it won't blow up. And then the actual GP under a crown is this didn't blow up. Essentially the best way to think of it. As you've probably gathered, revolver aficionados, this is single action only. There is no double action option on the percussion revolver. You can pull the trigger and nothing will happen. Half cock position, full cock position, and not a super light pull off, but perfectly serviceable. Sights, a bit like the Colt, are only visible when the gun is cocked, because your rear sight is also your hammer. It's just a V notch in the hammer. And then a front, quite a defined kind of barleycorn front sight is dovetailed in to the barrel there. Now, I've mentioned rare variants of this. Super rare, rarest of the rare, I don't know how many exist, is the Pinfire version. So this Pinfire cartridge system, we've come up now with the idea of putting whole cartridges in the back of the cylinder. the first, I believe it'd be the first attempt by LeMat to catch up with that new technology, is to come up with a pinfire version of the gun that looks quite similar to this design, but instead of the nipples, you have little notches for the little pins to stick out that the hammer then slaps down onto. We've shown pinfire firearms on the channel before. We don't have one of those, unfortunately, so we don't have a first pattern, we don't have a pinfire edition, as it were. We do have, however, the centerfire LeMat, which is really quite radically different in design for two reasons. Well, I think they're the same reason, actually. So, we have to redesign this to accommodate cartridges. We now have to load from the back. I'll show you that in a moment. I think the increased recoil of what's essentially a more powerful load, at least for the revolver, has necessitated this more vertical grip, much more vertical. This is more old-fashioned, curved, going back to the flintlock era, but certainly percussion. Doesn't have that classic Adams British steeper angle with a big hump on the back for the web of your hand. It's very much a curved sort of ploughshare shape. This is suddenly very vertical with a great big hump here. So I think that's about recoil control. The main design change, as I say, a loading gate, so very similar to the Lefaucheux design. Sprung gate that you flip up. You have to obviously rotate your chamber in alignment with the loading gate. That's very much like the Colt as well in this respect. Insert a cartridge, rotate to the next one. You need to be on half cock for that. Rotate to the next one, load it, next one, load it. And you have a channel cut in the frame here to slide in your cartridge. And then you close your loading gate when you're fully loaded. Still 9 shots, thus the cylinder is now enormous. Now to unload, because you have a case to get rid of now, percussion is caseless, remember. Gate open, align the empty case, and we have a Colt-esque, not sprung though, ejector rod. So the little rod pokes out the empty case, rotate to the next chamber, punch that out, and so on and so forth. Because they expand on firing, they're not likely to be able to just drop out. Like sometimes you'll see the movies, there's less pressure from a blank, or they've even set it up deliberately, and they do the cool rotate the cylinder and they drop out. Not likely to happen in reality. Okay, that's the pistol barrel and cylinder. What about the shotgun? Used to be muzzle loaded, of course. What do we do now? Well, quite ingenious. If we fully cock the hammer, we've got just enough room back here to open a second loading gate, which incorporates the firing pin. It's a sprung plunger firing pin here, struck by the nose of the hammer, of course, or rather that nose of the hammer down here. It has a second nose, so it's not switching fire between the two. It's deploying a second hammer nose, which is this flat surface here, down here like that. So really stubby, short shotgun cartridge, not very powerful. Drops in there, shove it in with the thumb, close up the loading gate. There's a spring for the loading gate on this side here. And then you're ready to shoot. So with the hammer down, you pull the trigger. Striker is slapped by that lower nose, but it stops short of igniting the top cartridge, or the cartridge in the cylinder. So you don't get that double shot of a bullet and a blast of shot going down range. Incidentally, these are often referred to at the time and since as grape shot revolvers. I think that's a little bit excessive. Grape shot is an artillery round. It looks like a bunch of grapes, usually iron spheres in a sort of lump that shoots out and turns the cannon into a sort of quite long-range shotgun, as opposed to canister, which is like a short-range shotgun. Anyway, so I think calling these grape shot is a bit of an over-exaggeration. His other term in his patent, LeMat calls the shotgun load duck shot. I think that's a much better indication of the size of shot you're going to be able to fit in this small barrel. Sometimes people say it's buckshot. Well, you could load several shots of buckshot in there, but then you're reducing your barrel length, your powder charge will be proportionately smaller. It's not going to be super powerful. So yeah, duck shot, or maybe swan shot, something like that. Something for taking out medium-sized birds. Certainly going to be a bad day if you're shot in the face by a cavalryman with it. But it's not somehow a 12-gauge shotgun, put it that way. And then to switch fire, as I've said, the nose doesn't switch fire, but you can switch fire. And I'm doing that with this knob on the side here. Shotgun position, pistol position. So this design here, this is captured in a patent of 1868, British patent of 1868, but we don't see this additional knob here that makes for a better fire selector until a patent of 1877. So the gap here, therefore, logically is these ceased production in 1865, but by as early as 1868, we might be seeing the pinfire and the early centerfire versions of these being manufactured. This one is from post 1877 with this feature. Now we do have the little baby LeMat, which is still quite big, but it's a lot shorter. This was another in the product range, and this is actually serial number 13, marked on the gun in a couple of places. So I'm happy that this is genuinely serial number 13. Colonel LeMat patent on the top strap there, on the barrel flap there, quite nicely engraved. So I believe this would be serial number 13 of the French production of the centerfire. I won't say pocket size, but small size LeMat revolver. And that still has a version of the old pivoting lever, albeit it's not rotating one, it's still an advancement, it's not pivoting one firing pin, it's deploying a second one. But it doesn't have that convenient side nubbin. I mean, arguably convenient, I'm not sure. I actually think, I can reach up and operate it quite well with my thumb. On this one, though, I guess that was the complaint, probably, that you had to reach up with a very long thumb. I have quite long thumbs to switch to the shotgun barrel. So I guess that's your improvement. You've fired all of your 9 pistol shots. You cock it again. You flick to the shotgun, and you give them the shotgun barrel as well. Just as a comparison there. Now this big one here has a number 2 on it. I'm a little tentative about saying it's serial number 2. If it is, I think it's got to be from a different range, because it has that improvement from 1877 on it. But it's possible I've got my timeline wrong here. They both have that dangling lanyard loop on the bottom of the frame here. So if you had to let it drop, it would dangle like that. In contrast to the fairly iconic doubling up as a sort of skull smasher protuberance on the pommel here, this is a lanyard. Well, you could put a ring through it, or you could actually hang the revolver from that. So the idea being, if you're cavalry and you have to let it drop to grab the reins or fight off an opponent with your sword, the primary weapon of a cavalryman at this era, really. Well, depending which country you're in. The Americans might argue the pistol is. That's a great big fixed lanyard loop. You can clobber someone with it as well. That's done away with on these guys. So, what do we think of the LeMat? Well, I really like it. I think it's very cool. I'd like to learn more about it. Actually, a shout out to our good friend Larry Zanoff at ISS, the prop house over in the States. He's a huge fan of the LeMat, and I know he'll be happy to see it in this video. Lots of fans of this thing. It's shown up in movies, Westerns typically. There was a version of it in the remake, the TV series of Westworld, which was an interesting prop that I won't go into now, but something a bit different. It keeps cropping up. It's got that sort of, I don't know, almost sci-fi lines to this thing, but it's cap and ball revolver. And speaking of cap and ball, another shout out / reference to Balash at Cap and Ball, the YouTube channel. Do go and check out his LeMat video. Well, I think he has more than one, but the one where he is test firing a Pietta LeMat and seeing how effective this thing is, especially with the shotgun. And the results are not stellar, but bear in mind, this is for very, very close range. So a bit of a niche revolver, but with some very significant American Civil War history behind it, and then an attempt to bring it up to date with I mean, it almost looks like Hellboy's Samaritan Revolt from the Hellboy comics and movies.
Take the hint.
We don't take hints.
But if you thought this was big and bulky, I think this is done for by just being too big and bulky, and the baby version is just not going to be powerful enough, I think, to justify the complexity and presumably the cost of these things. But it will be forever a very cool antique firearm. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We really do appreciate it. In fact, we appreciate even more the fact that you have pushed us over 300,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. Can't thank you all enough for that. If you haven't already, please do check out our website, our social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now expanding our social media horizons. We are now on TikTok. Our TikTok handle will appear somewhere here, depending on whether they want to troll me or not and put it somewhere else. But you'll be able to check out, well, I imagine a series of short videos of some sort. But we're quite excited to be expanding onto TikTok as well as all of the other platforms. Events-wise, we do have coming up the Summer Joust, which is taking place over the summer bank holiday. That's definitely worth a look, and should be some nice weather as well, although I've probably tempted fate by saying that. But whatever happens, please do join us again here next week.